My mother-in-law tried to ruin my marriage, so I collected evidence of every manipulative thing she did. I'm 31F and I'm writing this from a hotel room because I can't be in my own house right now. My husband Marcus is 33 and we've been married for 5 years, together for 8, and his mother Diane has been trying to destroy our relationship since the day we met. I need to get this out because what happened last week was so insane that I'm still processing it. I also need to know if I went too far or if I was just protecting myself. Marcus and I met in graduate school. I was getting my master's in public health and he was finishing his MBA. We clicked immediately. He's kind and thoughtful and we have the same weird sense of humor. Diane hated me from the start. The first time I met her she looked me up and down and asked Marcus if he was sure about me, right in front of me like I wasn't standing there. She's one of those mothers who thinks no woman is good enough for her son. Marcus is her only child and his father passed away when he was in college, so she's poured all her energy into him for the past decade. When we got engaged she cried, not happy tears, she actually cried and said she was losing her baby. At our wedding she wore a cream-colored dress that was basically white. She gave a toast that was more about her relationship with Marcus than about our marriage. She mentioned me exactly once. But I thought okay, she's adjusting, she'll come around. She didn't come around. Over the past 5 years she's escalated from passive-aggressive comments to active interference in our lives. She has a key to our house that Marcus gave her years ago. She uses it to let herself in unannounced. I've come home from work to find her rearranging our kitchen cabinets because she didn't like my organization system. She's shown up at 7 in the morning on a Saturday and walked right into our bedroom to wake Marcus up because she wanted to take him to breakfast. When I got promoted to director at my job 2 years ago she told Marcus I was going to neglect our future children. We don't even have kids yet. She makes comments about my weight, my hair, my clothes, always framed as concern. She'll say things like I'm just worried you're not taking care of yourself or Marcus deserves someone who makes an effort. Marcus defends me when he's there to hear it, but she's strategic. She saves her worst comments for when we're alone. About a year ago I started documenting everything. I know that sounds paranoid but I felt like I was going crazy. Marcus would tell me I was overreacting when I'd try to explain what she'd said, so I needed proof. I started keeping a detailed log on my laptop, dates, times, exact quotes when I could remember them. I also started saving text messages and emails. Diane texts me constantly, usually under the guise of being helpful. She'll send me articles about how to be a better wife, recipes she thinks I should make for Marcus, tips on home organization. But mixed in are these little jabs. She sent me an article about women who prioritize career over family and how their marriages suffer. She sent me a photo of Marcus's ex-girlfriend from college with a caption about how she always loved that girl. I screenshot everything. 6 months ago things got worse. Diane started telling Marcus that I was being cold to her, that I was pushing her away, that I was trying to isolate him from his family. None of this was true. I was just setting boundaries, asking her to call before coming over, asking her not to criticize me in my own home. Marcus started getting frustrated with me. He said I was being unreasonable, that his mom just wanted to be involved in our lives. We started fighting about it constantly. I felt like I was losing him. Then 3 months ago Diane told Marcus she was worried about our marriage. She said she'd seen signs that I might be cheating on him. Marcus confronted me. He was upset and confused. I was horrified. I asked what signs. He said his mom had noticed I was working late a lot, that I was on my phone more than usual, that I seemed distant. I work in public health. I'd been managing a COVID vaccination clinic that had insane hours. Of course I was working late and stressed. I showed Marcus my work schedule, my emails, everything. He apologized and said his mom must have misunderstood. But the seed was planted. I could see it. He started watching me more carefully, checking my phone when I left it out, asking more questions about where I'd been. It was destroying us. 2 months ago I decided I needed to confront Diane directly. I went to her house and tried to have a calm conversation. I said I knew she was worried about Marcus but that spreading false concerns about our marriage was harmful. She acted shocked. She said she would never do anything to hurt her son's marriage, that I was being paranoid and defensive. Then she said maybe the problem was that I had something to hide. I left feeling worse than when I arrived. Last month Diane ramped up her campaign. She started calling Marcus multiple times a day, crying, saying she felt shut out, saying I was turning him against her. She told him she wanted to have a family meeting to air everything out. Marcus agreed before even asking me. The meeting was scheduled for last Saturday at our house. Diane wanted Marcus's aunt and uncle there too, for support she said. I spent the week before the meeting sick with anxiety. I knew this was going to be an ambush. I knew she was going to paint me as the villain in front of Marcus's family. So I prepared my own defense. I printed out every text message, every email, every entry in my log. I organized it chronologically. I put it all in a binder. I also set up my laptop to record the meeting. I placed it on the bookshelf facing the living room where we'd be sitting. I angled it so it looked like it was just sitting there, not obviously recording. I know this sounds extreme but I needed evidence of what was about to happen. Saturday came and Diane arrived with Marcus's Aunt Carol and Uncle Jeff. We all sat down in the living room. Marcus made coffee. Diane started by saying she wanted to create a safe space for honest conversation. Then she immediately launched into a list of complaints about me. She said I was controlling, that I monopolized Marcus's time, that I'd made him choose between me and his family, that I was hostile toward her. She cried. She said she just wanted her son back, that she missed the close relationship they used to have. Carol and Jeff looked uncomfortable but nodded along. Marcus looked at me waiting for my response. I pulled out the binder. I started with the text messages. I read them out loud, the passive-aggressive comments, the articles about bad wives, the photo of the ex-girlfriend. Diane interrupted saying I was taking things out of context. I kept going. I showed the emails where she'd invited Marcus to family events and specifically said not to bring me. I showed the log entries documenting times she'd let herself into our house unannounced. I read back her exact words about me neglecting future children, about me not making an effort, about her concerns that I was cheating. Marcus's face changed as I went through everything. He started to see the pattern. Diane was getting angrier. She said I was twisting everything, that this proved I was obsessed with her, that keeping this kind of documentation was unhinged. Then I played the recording I'd made of our private conversation at her house 2 months ago, the one where she said maybe the problem was that I had something to hide. I'd recorded that conversation on my phone because I knew she'd deny it. Texas is a one-party consent state. Diane went pale. She started backtracking, saying she didn't remember saying that I must have edited it. Carol finally spoke up and said this seemed like a misunderstanding on both sides. I said no, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate campaign to undermine my marriage. I'd been documenting it for a year and the pattern was undeniable. Marcus asked his mom if what I was showing him was accurate. She started crying harder, saying I'd set a trap for her, that this whole meeting was an ambush. I said she was the one who called this meeting. I just came prepared. Jeff suggested everyone take a break. Diane refused. She stood up and said if Marcus didn't see that I was manipulative and toxic then she'd failed as a mother. She said she wouldn't watch me destroy her son. She left. Carol and Jeff followed her out after some awkward goodbyes. Marcus and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he said he needed time to think. He said he believed me but he felt betrayed that I'd been documenting everything without telling him, that I'd recorded the meeting without anyone's knowledge. I tried to explain that I needed proof, that he hadn't believed me before. He said he understood but he needed space. He's been staying at a friend's place for the past week. Diane has been blowing up his phone. I don't know what she's telling him but I know it's not good. I'm in a hotel now because being in our house alone is too hard. I don't know if I saved my marriage or destroyed it. I don't know if I was protecting myself or if I crossed a line. I have all the evidence that I was right about Diane, but I might have lost Marcus in the process. Update, 3 weeks later. I wasn't sure I'd be back to update but enough people messaged me asking what happened that I figured I owed an explanation. The past 3 weeks have been a nightmare but there's also been some resolution. After I posted originally Marcus and I didn't speak for 5 days, he needed space and I gave it to him even though it was killing me. On day 6 he texted asking if we could meet for dinner somewhere neutral. We met at a restaurant halfway between our house and his friend's apartment. He looked exhausted. He said he'd spent the past week reviewing everything I'd shown him at the family meeting, reading through the binder multiple times, listening to the recordings. He said he believed me, that he could see the pattern of his mother's manipulation, that he was horrified he hadn't noticed it himself. But he was also hurt that I'd been documenting everything for a year without telling him. He felt like I didn't trust him. I tried to explain that I'd tried to tell him many times, that he'd dismissed my concerns, that I needed concrete proof before he'd listen. He admitted that was true. He said he'd been conditioned his whole life to see his mother as fragile and well-intentioned, that it was hard to accept she'd been actively sabotaging us. We talked for 3 hours. We both cried. By the end of dinner we agreed to try marriage counseling. We found a therapist who specializes in family dynamics and boundary issues. We've had 4 sessions so far. It's been really hard. Marcus has had to confront a lot of things about his relationship with Diane, about how enmeshed they are, about how he's enabled her behavior for years. Our therapist said that Diane exhibits signs of covert narcissism and that her relationship with Marcus has characteristics of emotional incest. That term shocked both of us but the more we learned about it the more it fit. Marcus decided he needed to set firm boundaries with his mother. 2 weeks ago he met with her and told her she was no longer welcome in our home without an invitation, that she needed to stop making negative comments about me, that she needed to respect our marriage. Diane did not take it well. She cried and said he was choosing me over her, that I'd poisoned him against his own mother. Marcus held firm. He said he was choosing his marriage, that he loved her but that her behavior had been unacceptable. She threatened to cut him off, to remove him from her will, to tell the whole family what a terrible son he'd become. Marcus said that was her choice but his boundaries weren't changing. She hasn't spoken to him since. It's been 12 days of complete silence. Carol called Marcus last week to say that Diane was devastated, that she was telling everyone I'd manipulated Marcus into abandoning her. Marcus told Carol he'd be happy to show her the evidence if she wanted to see it. She declined and said she didn't want to get involved. The rest of Marcus's extended family has been similarly distant. They clearly believe Diane's version of events. Marcus is grieving. He's lost his mother at least temporarily, possibly permanently. He's also lost the idealized version of her he'd been carrying around. But he's also been more present in our marriage than he's been in years. He's actually listening to me. He's taking my feelings seriously. He's made it clear that I'm his priority. We moved back into our house together last week. The first thing we did was change the locks. Diane's key no longer works. We also set up a Ring camera at the front door because I was genuinely worried she might show up and try to get in. Our therapist has been helping us process everything. She said that what I did with the documentation was a form of self-protection in an environment where my reality was being constantly denied. She also said that secretly recording the family meeting was ethically complicated, that while it was legal it violated trust. Marcus and I talked about that a lot. I apologized for not telling him I was recording. He said he understood why I did it but asked me to promise I'd never record him without his knowledge again. I agreed. We're not out of the woods yet. We have a lot of work to do in therapy, but we're doing it together. I don't know what will happen with Diane. Marcus has said the ball is in her court. If she wants a relationship with him she needs to acknowledge her behavior and commit to changing it. I'm not holding my breath. But for the first time in 5 years I feel like Marcus and I are actually a team, like we're on the same side. Final update, 4 months later. This will be my last update because I think I've reached a place where I can close this chapter. Marcus and I are still in therapy and we're doing well. Our relationship feels stronger than it's been in years, maybe ever. We've had some hard conversations about boundaries, about communication, about trust, but we've worked through them. The biggest shift has been that Marcus now recognizes when someone is trying to manipulate him. His normal meter was completely broken after growing up with Diane. Therapy has been recalibrating it. Diane broke her silence 6 weeks ago. She sent Marcus a long email saying she'd been reflecting on their conversation, that she realized she'd been overstepping. The email was mostly self-pitying, lots of talk about how hard it's been being a single mother, how much she sacrificed for him, how she just wanted to protect him. There was no actual apology to me, no acknowledgement of the specific things she'd done. Marcus wrote back and said he appreciated her reaching out but that he needed to see concrete changes in behavior, not just words. He said if she wanted to rebuild their relationship she needed to go to therapy herself, she needed to apologize to me directly, and she needed to respect our boundaries going forward. She responded with anger, said therapy was for people with real problems, that she'd done nothing wrong, that I was still manipulating him. Marcus didn't respond, he's held his boundary. She tried a different approach 3 weeks ago. She showed up at Marcus's office with lunch, trying to ambush him into a conversation. He told her firmly that she needed to leave, that showing up unannounced was exactly the kind of boundary violation he'd asked her to stop. She caused a scene in the lobby. His coworkers witnessed it. It was humiliating for him. He sent her a follow-up email saying that until she could respect his boundaries he was going no contact. We haven't heard from her since. Carol called again last week to try to mediate. Marcus told her he loved his mother but that he couldn't have a relationship with someone who refused to acknowledge harm they'd caused. The extended family has mostly sided with Diane. We've been excluded from family gatherings. Marcus's cousin got married last month and we weren't invited. Marcus is sad about it but he's also clear that he made the right choice. Our therapist has been incredible. She's helped Marcus grieve a mother he wished he had while accepting the mother he actually has. She's also helped me process my own anger and resentment. I carried so much rage toward Diane for so long. I'm learning to let it go. We've also made some positive changes. We've been investing in our own chosen family, our friends, our community. We started hosting monthly dinners at our house. We've deepened our friendships. We've built a support system that isn't based on obligation or dysfunction. I also finally feel safe in my own home. Knowing Diane can't just walk in whenever she wants has been such a relief. We've talked about kids. We put off that conversation for years because I was terrified of what it would mean to have Diane as a grandmother. Now we're actually discussing it seriously. We both want children and we feel like we're finally in a place where we could raise them in a healthy environment. We've agreed that if we do have kids Diane will not have unsupervised access to them unless she's done serious work on herself. Even then it will be supervised and limited. I know that might sound harsh but we've seen what her parenting did to Marcus. We won't let her do that to our children. Looking back on everything I don't regret documenting what Diane did. It was the only way to make Marcus see the pattern. I do wish I'd told him sooner about the documentation, that I'd brought him into it instead of doing it alone. But I also know I did what I needed to do to survive, to protect my sanity, to protect my marriage. The binder is in a file box in our closet. I haven't looked at it in months. I don't need it anymore. I know what happened. Marcus knows what happened. The truth is established. We're building something new now, something that's just ours, something Diane can't touch.